I built him. I don't mean that in the poetic, I stood by him while he grew kind of way. I mean literally. I took a handsome, broke bartender who didn't know the difference between revenue and profit, taught him about business, crypto, leverage, negotiation, personal branding, then handed him access to everything I'd spent 15 years building: the company, the investors, the multi-million dollar wallets. And when he finally understood it all, when he knew where every seed phrase was, every backup drive, every signature he needed, he took it. Then he took me apart. My name is Alina. I'm 42 years old. I'm the woman who made my husband a multimillionaire and the woman he left bankrupt. This is how it happened. I still remember the first night I saw him. It was a Tuesday, which is the kind of night only lonely people and workaholics go to rooftop bars. I was both. The launch of my third company was 2 weeks away. I had a pitch deck open on my laptop, an espresso martini in my hand, and a view of the city glittering beneath me like a promise. My phone buzzed with emails, investor questions, legal updates, a message from my CFO about our burn rate. I should have gone home. I should have been tightening our tokenomics model instead of sitting under string lights surrounded by people who came for selfies and cheap cocktails. But there's something about success that nobody warns you about. You start mistaking constant motion for control. "Another drink, Miss Rivera?" the bartender asked, leaning on the counter. I looked up, and that was the first time I saw Leo. He had one of those faces that cameras love and people instinctively trust. Strong jawline, dark hair pushed back carelessly, eyes that looked like they were always on the verge of mischief or confession. His black shirt clung just enough to show the outline of his body without being obvious. There was a small tattoo on his wrist, a line of numbers. I didn't know what it meant then. Later, I would. "I shouldn't," I said. But yes. He smiled. That sounded like a woman who reads profit and loss statements for fun. That got my attention. "What makes you say that?" "The laptop, the 5-minute response time to every vibration from your phone, and the way you're staring past the skyline like you're trying to calculate how much each light bulb costs per hour." I laughed before I could stop myself. It startled me. Laughter had become a scheduled activity in my life, reserved for networking dinners and investor retreats. "Guilty," I admitted. He slid the drink toward me, then leaned closer, lowering his voice like it was just between us and the city. "So, tell me," he said, "are you saving the world or just making obscene amounts of money?" "Both," I replied automatically, "or trying to." He whistled softly, ambitious. I like it. He moved away to serve another customer, but my eyes followed him. The way he moved, the way he smiled at people, like they were all old friends waiting to be let in on a secret. That kind of charm was a language, one I understood, one I had weaponized in boardrooms and conferences. When he came back, he slid my bill across the bar. There was a note scribbled at the bottom. "So, what are you building?" Then, underneath, "Leo." That was how it started. Not with some grand romantic moment, with a question on a receipt. I didn't mean to tell him as much as I did that night. "It's a fintech platform," I said, raising my voice above the low hum of the music. "We combine automated investing with education. We're integrating a crypto layer, stablecoins, some DeFi yield strategies, but simplified for normal people. No charts, no jargon. Just put in $100, learn what happens to it, sleep at night. He blinked. Okay, so, in English? I laughed again. In English, we help people who barely understand a savings account earn better returns than their banks offer them, without getting scammed. His eyebrows lifted. You mean like my cousin, who lost all his savings trying to buy some dog coin off a guy in a Telegram group? Exactly like your cousin. Wow. He looked impressed. And you built this. How many times have you done this? This is my third company. He let out a low whistle. So you're like actually legit successful. I thought maybe you were another boss babe, selling vision boards and herbal tea. I rolled my eyes. I have actual audited financials, thank you. He grinned. I like you, Alina. I hadn't told him my name yet. I frowned. How did you? He tapped my black Amex lying on the bar, my last name embossed in silver. Oh, I said. Right. Don't worry, he added quickly, holding up his hands like he'd been caught. I'm not a creep. I just notice things. It's a bad habit. Later, I would realize that was the truest thing he ever told me. I went back. That's the part that matters. I went back the next week and the week after that. I told myself it was because the rooftop bar was convenient, because the view was calming, because their espresso martini had precisely the right ratio of coffee to vodka. But if I'm being honest with you, I went back because of Leo. He listened when I talked about things most men nodded through and forgot. He asked questions that made me feel interesting, not intimidating. When I mentioned the regulatory hell of launching a crypto-adjacent product, he didn't glaze over. He said, so they're scared of losing control, right? They don't care about the tech. They care about who gets to hold the leash. He got it, or at least he made me believe he did. He told me bits and pieces about himself too. An only child, grew up poor. His dad worked 3 jobs and still died, owing more than he owned. His mom cleaned houses. He'd never gone to college. He'd almost opened a gym once, but his partner bailed, and he lost his savings. I'm good with people, he said one night, wiping glasses behind the bar. But not like you. You move them. I just entertain them. You're underselling yourself, I said. People trust you. That's a skill most CEOs would kill for. He smiled slowly at that, a smile that made something flutter in my chest. You think so? I know so. Already, I was investing without realizing it. Not money yet, but attention. Time. The 2 currencies I protected the most. My friends noticed before I did. You're glowing, my best friend Nora said over Zoom one afternoon, squinting at me through her designer glasses. Nora had been with me through my first startup, the all-nighters, the ramen for breakfast, and negative bank balances. She knew my face better than I did. I'm exhausted, I said, rubbing my eyes. We're 3 days out from demo day. If this raise doesn't close, we're dead. You're exhausted and glowing, she corrected. Are you seeing someone? I hesitated. I hadn't called it that. I hadn't called it anything. Leo and I hadn't gone on a proper date. I sat at his bar. He worked. We talked. Sometimes he'd walk me to my car. Once, when it rained, he'd run outside holding a towel over both our heads, and we'd sprinted, laughing, water soaking our shoes. I'd told myself he was just a friendly bartender, a voice that wasn't worried about CAC or churn or regulatory language. But Nora's question lodged somewhere deep. Just someone I talk to, I finally said. She raised an eyebrow. Does someone have a name? Yes, I admitted. Leo. Nora sat back in her chair, studying me. Age? I don't know. Early 30s, maybe. And you're what, 41? 40 at the moment, thank you. Occupation? He works at a bar. She winced. Oh, Alina. Oh, what? You know what? She sighed. Forget the age. Forget the job. You're vulnerable right now. You're stressed. You're building something huge. The last thing you need is a beautiful distraction who sees dollar signs when he looks at you. He doesn't know how much I'm worth, I said quickly. He just thinks I'm starting up something new. Everyone Googles, everyone, especially men interested in a rich, gorgeous woman who tips in black metal. I looked away, suddenly uneasy. Had he Googled me? Probably. My story was all over the internet. Orphaned at 16, first million by 25, Forbes, 40, under 40 at 33. I told that version of my life so many times, it felt like someone else's legend. Just be careful, Nora said gently. I know you like to believe you're the one with power in every room, but love doesn't care about cap tables. I laughed it off then, but her words stayed with me. The night he kissed me, the bar was empty. A Tuesday again. Rain hammering the city. The rooftop was closed, so they'd moved service downstairs to the lounge. Dim, velvet seats, low music. There were two people in the corner, making out like they were about to climb inside each other, and a guy at the far end of the bar, nursing something clear and expensive. I think that guy's going to propose to his drink, I whispered. Leo chuckled. Jealous? Of the drink? Maybe. He shook his head, smiling. You work too much. So do you. Yeah, but if I disappear, no one's stock price drops. I snorted. 50% of our raise comes from one guy's recommendation. If he wakes up tomorrow in a bad mood, I'm the one who has to explain to 30 employees why their jobs don't exist. Then don't raise from one guy, he said simply. It's not that simple. Maybe, he said. You like complicated. I opened my mouth to argue, but the power flickered. The lights dimmed, then surged, then went out entirely. Oh, great, Leo muttered. Perfect timing. Emergency lights snapped on, bathing the bar in an eerie red glow. The couple in the corner laughed. The man with the expensive drink cursed. Everyone okay? Leo called. The manager shouted something from the back. There was the sound of bottles clinking, someone dropping a tray. You good? Leo asked me, leaning close. His face was inches from mine, shadows playing across his cheekbones. The emergency lights painted his eyes dark and bottomless. I'm fine, I said. My voice came out softer than I intended. We stared at each other for a second too long. It was like the air between us became another person. Alina, he said slowly. Yes. Can I? He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. He leaned in, and I had a split second to decide. I thought about Nora's warning. I thought about my half-written investor update sitting open on my laptop at home. I thought about my carefully constructed life. my strict boundaries about not mixing business and romance. And then I thought, I am so tired of being just a brain. So I kissed him. It was supposed to be quick, light, a test. Instead, it unfurled like something that had been waiting at the edge of my life, patient and hungry. His hand slid to the small of my back, pulling me closer. I felt the heat of his body through my blouse, the scrape of his stubble against my cheek. The power came back on suddenly, flooding the bar with bright light. We broke apart, breathing hard. "Well," I said. "Well," he echoed. We looked at each other. "Come over after your shift," I said. He blinked. "Are you sure?" "I built an algorithm that reallocates millions of dollars in milliseconds," I said. "I can make one personal decision without a pro-con list." He laughed. Then he came over. And in that moment, that tiny pivot in my life, I had no idea I'd just hired the architect of my own destruction. We slid into each other's lives fast. He moved into my apartment before we used the word love. It wasn't officially planned. He just started staying over, leaving toothbrushes and shirts, then drawers, then a gym bag. Then one morning he showed up with a suitcase and said, "They're renovating my building. They turned off the water. Is it okay if I crash here for a few days?" A few days turned into forever. Nora rolled her eyes so hard, I thought they might detach. "You know he's never leaving," she said, over brunch, stirring her oat milk latte like it had insulted her. "And you're not making him sign anything." "He doesn't own anything," I said, "except a motorcycle that barely starts and 6 pairs of sneakers." "Exactly," she replied. "Meanwhile, you have a portfolio, 3 companies, and enough crypto to build your own island if the SEC ever bans you." "He's not after my money," I said. She arched an eyebrow. "How do you know?" "Because he never asks about it. He asks about my day, my stress, my insomnia. He brings me coffee when I'm on calls. He tells me to shut my laptop when I'm glassy-eyed at 2 a.m. Nora sighed. "That's the bare minimum of what a partner should do. You're acting like he's created world peace because he loads the dishwasher." "You're being cynical," I said. "I'm being 43 and divorced from a man who smiled at my pitch decks and stole my contacts. Just remember who you are in this story, okay? You're not the support character." I nodded, but inside, I wasn't worried. Because here was the thing about Leo. When we were alone, he made me feel like I could finally rest. In his arms, I could be Alina, the woman. Not Alina the brand, Alina the CEO. Alina the visionary. For someone like me, who'd spent years being nothing but sharp edges and strategies, that kind of softness felt like oxygen. I confused comfort with safety. Sometimes they're the same. Sometimes they're not. When I proposed, he cried. Yes, I proposed. Of course I did. You're probably not surprised. We were in Lisbon for Web Summit. I'd just spoken on a panel about women in Web3, where a moderator asked me how it felt to be a female founder in such a male-dominated space. And I'd smiled through my teeth and given some polished answer about resilience and representation. Afterward, Leo met me backstage, eyes shining with pride. He'd watched from the front row, phone up, recording every second. "You killed it," he said. "They should have called it Web Alina." "Please don't ever say that again," I laughed. We went to dinner at a small restaurant overlooking the river. Not one of the flashy places sponsors booked out, but somewhere local, with grilled fish and cheap wine and a television in the corner playing soccer. He raised his glass. To my brilliant, terrifying, beautiful wife-to-be. We weren't engaged yet. I raised my own glass. To my handsome, supportive, occasionally ridiculous husband-to-be. He froze, glass halfway to his lips. "Wait," he said slowly. "Was that?" I set my glass down and took a breath. Here's the thing. I'd never been afraid of risk. I'd mortgaged my apartment once to make payroll. I'd signed personal guarantees on loans big enough to make my stomach twist. I'd moved continents for an accelerator program on the promise of network effects. But no decision had made me more nervous than the one I was about to make. "Leo," I said, "will you marry me?" His eyes filled with tears. Actual tears. Not a performance. Not from what I could tell. "Alina," he whispered, "you're serious?" "I don't do jokes about legally binding contracts," I said. "Yes, I'm serious." He put his face in his hands for a second, like he was overwhelmed, then looked up and laughed, wet and shaky. "Yes," he said. "Of course, yes. God, yes." He stood, pulled me up, kissed me in the middle of that noisy restaurant while a goal was scored on the TV, and the whole place erupted in cheers. It felt like the universe was celebrating with us. We got married 6 months later. I signed a prenup. I insisted. He resisted just enough to make me feel bad, then dramatically caved, calling me my ruthless queen and telling everyone at brunch how he'd be poor, even if she left me. People loved it, the narrative. The self-made woman protecting her empire. The humble husband who wasn't in it for the money. If only I'd realized. Paper is only as strong as the person holding the pen. Marriage didn't change much at first. We still lived in my apartment. He still worked at the bar, though less. I'd started giving him small tasks in the company, helping with events, community management on our app, moderating Telegram chats. He was good at it, too good. Users adored him. He knew how to make people feel like they mattered, even in a chat with thousands of strangers and a constantly scrolling feed of questions, complaints, memes. He'd reply with jokes, emojis, little personalized messages. "GM fam," he'd type at 7 a.m. "Remember, your future self is watching your decisions today. Make them proud." Our retention numbers went up. Investors noticed. "Your community engagement is off the charts," one said during a call. "Who's handling that?" I glanced at Leo across the living room. He was on the floor, laptop open, wearing only sweatpants, hair messy. "Someone very good with people," I replied. "You should put him more front-facing," the investor said. "Everyone needs a charismatic co-founder. You're brilliant, Alina, but you're intimidating. He could soften your image." I bristled at that. Softening my image had never been the goal. But I understood what they meant. The public loved a double act, the visionary and the charmer, the brains and the heart. "Think about it," the investor said. "Faces sell. Especially handsome ones." When I told Leo, he laughed. "So, they want me to be your pretty mascot?" "They want you to host some AMAS, maybe be on a podcast," I said. "You'd be great at it." He pretended to think. "Does this come with a pay raise?" "You're married to the majority shareholder," I pointed out. You sleep with your salary. He grinned. Then I want equity. I froze. He was joking. I told myself he was joking. But the word hung in the air between us, heavier than it should have been. The first time I showed him the cold wallets, it felt like handing him my beating heart. We were in my office, a converted room in our new house. Yes, we'd upgraded. A glass and steel box overlooking the city, full of clean lines and designer furniture. People came in and said things like, "This is so you, Alina." I tried not to think about how little of it felt like me. I'd just gotten off a call about a potential partnership with a major exchange. Millions of dollars worth of tokens were moving through our ecosystem daily. Some were in custodial accounts, some were in smart contracts, some were still in cold storage, belonging to me personally. The fuck you fund, as Nora called it. Money I could walk away with if everything exploded. Money that meant I'd never again be the scared 16-year-old girl who didn't know how she'd pay rent. Leo walked in, barefoot, holding 2 mugs of tea. Mint for me, black for him. "You look like you're about to fight a dragon," he said, handing me my mug. "In a way, I am," I replied. "Regulatory dragon might breathe subpoenas." He laughed, setting his mug down. His eyes fell on the small, fireproof safe in the corner, half hidden behind a plant. "What's in there?" he asked casually. "Documents," I said. "Some hardware wallets, backup drives." He nodded, then wandered over, crouching in front of it like a kid in a museum. "It's so small," he said. "Crazy to think you could have, what, $10 million in there? More?" "More," I said, "but most of it's distributed. This is just worst case scenario. Everything else caught fire money." He tried the handle. It was locked, obviously. "You don't trust me?" he asked with a mock offended pout. "It's not about trust," I said. "It's about security." "Same thing," he said. "You secure what you don't trust." I set my mug down and stood, walking over to him. I sat on the edge of the desk, looking down at him. "Do you trust you with $10 million?" I asked. He thought for a second. "Maybe not with a casino nearby." We both laughed. Then, without really planning to, I keyed in the combination. The safe clicked open. Leo's joking expression vanished, replaced by something like awe. Inside were 3 hardware wallets, 2 external hard drives, and a stack of envelopes. He reached out, then stopped himself. "Can I?" "Don't touch," I said automatically. "Electrostatic discharge, fingerprints, habit." "Right," he said. "Those," I pointed to the hardware wallets, "are access tools. Without the seed phrases and pins, they're useless. Those," I gestured at the drives, "are encrypted backups. And those," I tapped the envelopes, "print copies of the seeds, split in parts." He let out a low whistle. "You're like a vault within a vault. Paranoid entrepreneurs stay alive longer," I said. He looked up at me. "What happens if something happens to you?" I hesitated. "I have a dead man's switch," I said. "Legal documents, instructions. Nora has part of the information. My lawyer has another part. It's complicated." "So even in death," he said, half joking, half serious, "you're still running the show." "What can I say?" I smiled. "Control freak." He nodded slowly, eyes returning to the wallets. Teach me, he said. Teach you what? This, all of it. The way you think about it, how you design it, how you hide it, how you move it. I'm your husband. If something happens to you, shouldn't I know how to protect what you've built? My chest tightened. It was such a reasonable request. Logical, even. Any estate planner would have nodded in approval. I'd seen enough widows and widowers lose everything because they had no idea where the passwords were, how the accounts worked. You don't have to give me access, he added quickly. Just teach me. In case the world ends and I'm the only one left with a USB stick and a prayer. I studied his face. He looked open, sincere, a little intimidated. The way most people looked when facing the abstract concept of millions converted into invisible digital tokens. Okay, I said finally, I'll teach you. I told myself it was love. I told myself it was trust. I told myself, again, that I was in control. What I was really doing was sharpening the blade that would later cut my own throat. Teaching him was surprisingly fun. We made it a thing. Sunday mornings, when other couples went to farmers markets or brunch, we sat at the kitchen table with coffee and laptops and notepads. I walked him through everything: how a blockchain works, what private keys are, why you never store a seed phrase in a photo on your phone. We discussed hot wallets and cold wallets, multi-sig setups, the difference between self-custody and custodial solutions. He was a quick study. I get it, he said one morning, tapping his pen on the table. It's like, you've built a bank where you're the only person with the keys to the vault, but the vault lives in space, and anyone can see what's inside, but only you can open it. Roughly, I said, amused, except everyone has their own vault, and some vaults are smart. They can lend money, execute trades, do stuff automatically. He shook his head. It's insane. People trust this? People trust what they understand, I said. Or what they think they understand. Our job is to make them actually understand it. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. What? I asked. You really love this, he said. The systems, the rules, the game. It got me out, I said quietly, of everything. Of the neighborhood, the debt, the panic. I used to watch my mother cry over bills at the kitchen table. Crypto, startups, tech, whatever you want to call this world. It was a map out of hell. So, yes, I love it. He reached across the table, took my hand, squeezed. His eyes were soft. I wish I'd met you sooner, he said. You could have saved my dad. The sincerity in his voice made my eyes sting. You can't save everyone, I said. Sometimes you barely save yourself. I'm going to learn everything you know, he said, so I can save you too. I smiled, touched. I didn't realize then that, in his head, saving and taking were starting to look very similar. The company exploded. In a good way. At first. We closed the Series B. Our token launch sold out in minutes. Users poured into the platform. I was on panels, podcasts, magazine covers. The Latina who's bringing Wall Street to Web3, one headline said. Another called me crypto's consistent queen. I hated both, but I smiled and posed and gave quotes about democratizing finance. We hired. We opened offices in 3 countries. I delegated more. Leo took over community fully, then partnerships, then brand strategy. He was good on camera. He looked the part. Influencers started requesting him on their channels. "He's such a great co-founder," they'd say. He wasn't, technically. Legally, the paperwork still listed me as the sole founder and CEO. But perception is a powerful thing. In people's minds, he and I were a unit, a team. Behind the scenes, he started sitting in more meetings. "At least let me listen," he'd say, sliding into a chair in the boardroom. "I don't want to embarrass you by not knowing what's going on." I let him. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband. He heard everything: investor concerns, regulatory risks, upcoming partnerships, treasury management plans. He started chiming in, offering comments that sounded naive at first, then increasingly sharp. "Why are we holding so much in ETH?" he'd ask. "Shouldn't we be diversifying more? Maybe more BTC, more stable coins? What happens if gas fees spike?" My CFO raised an eyebrow, impressed. "He's learning fast," she said. "He has a good teacher," I replied. We laughed. I didn't see the fault lines forming. The first real crack appeared on a random Wednesday afternoon. I came home early from the office, exhausted. We'd just gotten notice of an SEC inquiry. It wasn't unexpected. We'd been careful, but in crypto, careful only goes so far. Still, the weight of it pressed on my chest. I opened the front door quietly, planning to tiptoe in, surprise Leo if he was home, collapse on the couch, and let him rub my shoulders while I ranted about regulators. Instead, I heard his voice. "Yeah, but it has to look like it's voluntary. She can't know it's happening, not until it's done." I froze in the hallway. My heart started beating so loudly I couldn't hear the other person on the call. "She trusts me," Leo continued. "That's not a problem. The board, though. Yeah. Okay, let me handle her. You handle the filings." Filings? My stomach clenched. I stepped into the doorway of his home office. He was at the desk, back to me, headset on. Multiple browser windows open on the screen. Back office dashboards, a legal document draft, a messenger chat with names I recognized, one of our investors, our outside counsel's junior partner. He must have seen my reflection in the monitor, because he turned abruptly. For a second, his face went completely blank. Then he smiled. "Hey, babe," he said, covering the mic with his hand. "Didn't hear you come in." "Who are you talking to?" I asked. He hesitated. "Just long enough." "Just Martin," he said, "one of our minor investors. He's freaking out about the inquiry." "Take it off speaker," I said. "I want to say hi." He swallowed. "It's not a good time," he said quickly. He's drunk. You know how he gets. I don't want to drag you into his drama." He turned his chair away from me, uncapped the mic, and said, "I'll call you back. She's home." Then he hung up. He stood, walking toward me, stretching his arms like nothing was wrong. "You look beat," he said. "Want coffee? Wine?" "What filings?" I asked. He stopped. "What?" "I heard you," I said slowly. "You said you handle the filings." "What filings?" He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Babe, you misheard. I said tellings, as in, you handle telling the others." "That's not a phrase anyone uses," I said. He rolled his eyes. "Jesus, Alina, you're exhausted." "You're hearing things. Come on, sit down. I'll order Thai." Something in my gut twisted. Nora's voice rang in my head. Remember who you are in this story. I want to see your screen, I said. He stiffened. Why? Because you're my husband on my company's systems, talking about filings I haven't authorized. He laughed, but it was brittle. Oh, come on, he said. Don't make this weird. I'm helping you. Remember? I've been taking stuff off your plate, dealing with some of the investors so you don't have to listen to their panic every time Bitcoin dips 2%. Stop! I snapped. He stopped. We stared at each other. The air between us felt different, heavy, charged. Alina, he said slowly, you're overreacting. Show me your screen, I repeated. His jaw clenched. Fine, he said, turning toward the desk. If it'll make you feel better. He moved quickly, too quickly. His hand darted to the keyboard. I lunged. I'm not proud of that moment. There was nothing dignified about it. I grabbed his wrist, shoved him aside, yanked the mouse. The screen showed my company's internal admin panel, an access log, a transfer request draft, a legal document open in a PDF viewer, amended shareholders' agreement. My eyes scanned the title, then the first few lines. This amendment reflects the voluntary transfer of 40% of founder A, Alina Rivera, shares to founder B, Leonardo. The rest blurred. What the hell is this? I whispered. He grabbed my shoulders. Alina, listen, he said quickly. It's not what you think. It looks like you're rewriting my cap table, I said, voice shaking. Behind my back. I talked to Martin and Donna, our outside counsel. They said it made sense to formalize what everyone already thinks. We're a team, co-founders. If something happens to you, stop using my death as an excuse, I snapped. This increases your shares now. Not if I die. Now. He exhaled, annoyed. Okay, he said. Yes, it does. Because it should. I do a lot more than you give me credit for, Alina. I handle all the community, the brand, the partnerships. The investors love me. You're the genius in the back room, but I'm the one who makes them feel safe. That's value. Value deserves equity. I stared at him. If you wanted more equity, I said slowly, you could have asked. You would have said no, he said. You don't know that. He laughed bitterly. You keep control of everything. You think I don't see it? The way you smile and nod in meetings, but never really let anyone else drive? You built this world where we all orbit around you. I'm tired of asking for permission to exist in it. So your solution is to steal my shares? I said. To rewrite contracts behind my back? I wasn't stealing, he snapped. We were going to talk about it. When? I demanded. After you filed it? After you told everyone it was already done and I'd look hysterical if I objected? He didn't answer. Silence stretched between us. In that silence, something inside me shifted. I'd spent years reading investors, partners, regulators. I knew when someone had crossed from negotiation into strategy. Leo wasn't improvising. He was executing. On me. Get out of my office, I said, quietly. He blinked. What? Get out, I repeated. Now. His face hardened. Fine, he said, if that's how you want to be. He left, slamming the door. I stared at the screen, heart pounding, hands shaking. I closed the document, logged him out, changed passwords, triggered a security alert to Nora and our CTO. I thought I'd stopped it. I was so wrong. The next weeks were tense. We didn't talk about the document again. Not directly. We circled it like a carcass in the room, both pretending not to smell the rot. He slept on the couch twice. I slept in the guest room once. Some nights, he'd come to bed late, smelling of whiskey and cologne I didn't recognize. Other nights, he'd curl around me like nothing was wrong, whispering that we were just going through a hard phase, and every power couple does. I wanted to believe that. I'd survived product failures, co-founder breakups, market crashes. I'd fought hard to be taken seriously in rooms full of men who thought my uterus made me statistically riskier than inflation. I didn't want the story of my life to be, she built an empire and lost it to a younger man with good hair. So I tried. We went to therapy. He turned on the charm for the therapist, of course, talking about his abandonment issues, how my need for control made him feel useless and unwanted. Some of it was true. That's what made it so dangerous. You built this incredible thing without needing anyone, he said in one session, tears glistening. Sometimes I feel like, what am I even here for? A prop? A +1 for conferences? I want to be your partner, not your accessory. My heart ached. I don't see you that way, I said, but that's how it feels. The therapist nodded thoughtfully. Alina, do you think there's room for Leo to have more agency in the business? Yes, I said slowly. As long as we're transparent. As long as we decide together. Leo smiled, squeezed my hand. I thought we'd rounded a corner. Meanwhile, he was quietly building his own. The night it all came crashing down, it started with a notification. One single notification. On a phone I almost never checked. Our internal treasury management system, an app so boring and secure that I sometimes forgot it existed, pinged an alert. Unusual withdrawal pattern detected. I was on the balcony, city lights spread beneath me, a glass of wine in my hand. Leo was supposedly out with friends from the old gym. I'd stopped asking for details. Every question turned into an argument about trust. I unlocked the phone, opened the app. My blood turned to ice. Multiple transactions, sequential. From wallets I controlled to new addresses. Amounts that made my head spin. 5 million in USDC, 3 million in ETH. Another 2 in wrapped BTC, outbound, confirmed. My fingers flew. I checked the cold wallets, the ones in the safe, the ones only Leo and I knew about now. One of them was empty, impossible. Only I had the seed phrase. Only I knew the PIN. I checked the paper backup in the envelopes. Still there. Untouched. So how? For a second, my brain refused to accept it. Maybe it was a display error, a network glitch, a hack. Yes, a hack. That was almost comforting. An anonymous attacker was easier to face than my husband. I called Nora. She answered on the second ring. What's wrong? She said immediately. You never call me at 9 p.m. unless something's on fire. Something's on fire, I said. Go to your laptop. Check the Treasury dashboard. I heard her footsteps, the creak of her chair, the flurry of keystrokes. Holy shit, she whispered. Is this real? I don't know, I said, but I knew. Deep down, I knew. We spun up our internal incident protocol, locked down systems, called our head of security, started tracing the outbound addresses on a blockchain explorer. The pattern was clear. Whoever did this knew exactly how our accounts were structured. They knew which wallets held what, which required multisig, which didn't. They hit the vulnerable ones hard and fast, moved the funds through a series of new addresses, then into a popular mixer. "It looks internal," our head of security said grimly on Zoom. "No sign of external breach. No phishing, no malware. Whoever did this had access." He didn't say who he thought that was. We all knew. "Where's Leo?" Nora asked quietly, once the call ended. "Out," I said. "Can you see his location?" I opened Find My on my iPhone. His dot pulsed on the screen. Not near a bar or a gym. At the airport. I stared at it. "Alina," Nora said slowly, "I need you to listen to me. Do not go there alone. Call the police. Call our lawyers. He can't get on that plane." I hung up. I know. It was stupid, emotional, dangerous. But in that moment, I wasn't the CEO of a multi-million-dollar company under attack. I was a wife whose husband had just ripped out her heart and was racing toward the exit. I grabbed my bag, my keys, and drove. Red lights blurred. My hands shook on the wheel. My mind replayed every moment of the last 3 years. Every kiss, every joke, every Sunday crypto lesson at the kitchen table. "Teach me," he'd said, "so I can save you." In the harsh fluorescent light of betrayal, the words sounded different. Traffic thickened near the airport. I abandoned my car in short-term parking, half crooked, ignoring the honks. Ran through sliding doors, the smell of coffee and jet fuel hitting me at once. I pulled up his location again. Still here. Terminal 3. I sprinted, my lungs burning. In some movie version of this, I'd find him at the gate, call his name, give some speech that made him crumble and confess. Security would swoop in. Justice would be cinematic. Real life is messier. By the time I reached the departure hall, my chest about to explode, my hair stuck to my forehead with sweat, his dot disappeared. I stopped in the middle of the terminal, people streaming around me. No signal, no location, no Leo. The plane hadn't taken off yet. The security line still snaked across the hall. He could have turned off his phone. He could have gone through a different entrance. He could have. "Ma'am?" A security guard touched my arm gently. "You okay?" she asked. I opened my mouth and discovered I couldn't speak. The world tilted. Somewhere, far away, my phone buzzed. I looked down. A notification from my email. "Your account password was successfully changed." Another. "Your two-factor authentication device has been updated." Another. New sign-in from an unrecognized device. It was like watching my life dissolve, one automated message at a time. Leo wasn't just leaving. He was erasing me. What followed was a blur. Lawyers, police reports, emergency board meetings, crisis, PR consultants. Journalists sniffing around like bloodhounds who'd smelled a scandal they could ride for months. "Are you the mastermind?" one article asked, pulling photos from my Instagram of vacations Leo and I had taken. "Crypto queen loses millions in rug pull. Husband at center of mystery," another screamed. That was the narrative that stuck. I wasn't a victim. I was the too smart for her own good woman who'd played with magic internet money until it bit her. I was the shady founder who claimed her man stole her tokens. A story so ridiculous, some people made memes about it. We filed injunctions, froze what we could. With the help of forensic blockchain analysts, we traced some of the funds to exchanges. Law enforcement in 3 countries got involved. But crypto isn't a neat world. Once money moves through enough mixers, privacy chains, decentralized protocols, it becomes like dye in water, everywhere and nowhere. Of the 14 million siphoned from personal and corporate wallets that night, we recovered maybe 3. The rest vanished. So did Leo. Weeks turned into months. The SEC inquiry intensified, now with an added angle. Did your husband's actions reflect systemic issues in your controls, Ms. Rivera? My board started asking if I should step down, temporarily, for optics. Investors got nervous. Some pulled out. Our token price tanked. We cut staff, closed one of the offices. I sold the house I'd never really felt at home in to cover legal costs and liabilities. My net worth, once stated breathlessly in articles, shrank like a deflating balloon. I wasn't broke, not at first. But I was no longer untouchable. And that, for someone like me, felt worse than zero. People ask me, sometimes, if I miss him. It's a stupid question. Or maybe it's not. Betrayal doesn't erase love. It contaminates it. There were nights I lay awake in the small apartment I'd rented after selling the house, staring at the ceiling, replaying memories. The sound of his laugh, the way he'd rub my back when I was hunched over my laptop, the time he'd surprised me with a weekend away after our product launch, turning off my phone for me because he knew I wouldn't. Had all of that been fake? Or had he loved me at first, then changed as the zeros in our accounts grew? Sometimes the not knowing hurt more than the theft. Nora tried to keep me grounded. He's a con, she said. Cons can love you and still rob you blind. The love just makes their work easier. What does that make me? I asked. A mark? It makes you human, she said. Just one who happened to have a very large, very tempting wallet. We tried to find him. Private investigators, court orders, we tracked IP addresses, emails, whispers in crypto forums. A photo surfaced once of someone who looked like him in Dubai, standing on a balcony overlooking futuristic skyscrapers. Another rumor placed him in Thailand, supposedly starting a new consulting business, helping projects recover lost funds. The irony made me want to break something. Months passed. The press moved on to fresher scandals. My company stabilized, smaller but alive. We pivoted, doubled down on compliance, partnered with firms that had survived worse. Slowly, my name became less toxic. Slowly, my life rebuilt. Until one morning, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You look good on the new podcast, Allie. Allie. Only one person called me that. My heart stuttered. Who is this? I typed. 3 dots. It's Leo. It took me 10 minutes to decide whether to block him or reply. In those 10 minutes, I went through every emotion possible. Rage fear, longing, curiosity, a grim, cold thrill. Blocking him would have been clean, final, healthy, every therapist would say. But nothing about what he'd done to me had been clean, or final, or healthy. He was still out there, with my money, with knowledge of my systems, with an unfinished story I was still paying interest on. So I replied, "What do you want?" Again, three dots. To talk. About what? The weather in Dubai? I'm not in Dubai. Where are you? Does it matter? My jaw clenched. It does to the authorities. Relax, Alina. I'm not stupid enough to send you my pinned location. You're stupid enough to message the woman whose company you robbed. A pause. I didn't rob your company. I laughed out loud. Right. So, 14 million just accidentally teleported into wallets you control. I took what was mine. My vision went red. My fingers flew. What was yours? The shares you tried to rewrite? The tokens bought with my sweat? The treasury built on my ideas? My work while you shook hands and smiled on YouTube? The reply came slower. You built the foundation. I scaled it. I turned you from a nerd with a good product into a movement. It wasn't all you, Alina. It was us. Then why did you leave me holding the bag? I typed. If it was us, why am I the one answering subpoenas? Why did I have to explain to 30 people why their jobs vanished while you sipped cocktails in some offshore tax haven? No response. I threw the phone onto the couch, breathing hard, hands shaking. 5 minutes later, it buzzed again. You want your money back? He wrote. I stared. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed. Of course, I wanted it back. Not just because of the amount, though that would have solved a lot of problems, but because that money represented something. My trust, my naivety, my failure to see what was right in front of me. It's not that simple, I replied. Sure it is. Explain. You come meet me. We talk. I sign over. Access to some of the wallets. You walk away richer. I walk away free of you and your witch hunt. I almost dropped the phone. You want me to clear you? You and your friends in the SEC. You tell them it was a domestic dispute, that it's resolved, that you don't want to press further. I laughed. Bitter, sharp. You think that's how it works? That I send a NVM LOL email and they pack up their laptops and go home? You still have influence. Not that much. He sent a laughing emoji. The casualness of it made me nauseous. Where are you? I typed against my better judgment. 3 dots. They blinked, stopped, started again. If I tell you, he wrote, will you come? I stared at the screen. Every rational neuron in my brain screamed, no. Go to the police. Go to Nora. Go to anyone but him. But there was another part of me, darker, more primal, that whispered, you deserve to look him in the eye, to ask why, to show him what he'd done, not in numbers and charts, but in the lines on my face, the stiffness in my shoulders, the smaller apartment, with the view of a brick wall instead of a skyline. I took a breath. If I come, I wrote slowly, it won't be alone. Of course, he replied. You never do anything alone. That's your weakness and your strength, says the man who couldn't build a landing page without me. He sent a smirking emoji. Lisbon, he wrote. Same restaurant. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Then, a second later. Consider it a full circle moment, Ali. I didn't sleep that night. I called Nora. She cursed so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You are not going, she said. Absolutely not. This isn't a movie. He could be setting you up, kidnapping, blackmail. He could have people waiting. I won't go alone, I said. That's not the point, she snapped. The point is, you owe him nothing. Not a meeting, not closure, not a view of how well you're doing despite him. You owe him nothing. I owe myself answers, I said quietly. She sighed, long and tortured. You're going to do it anyway, aren't you? Yes. Fine, she said. Then we do it my way. Her way involved lawyers, law enforcement, and a private security firm run by a woman who had once, no exaggeration, extracted kidnapped executives from hostile territories. You are not walking into this as a lovesick ex-wife, Nora said. You are walking in as bait in a sting. If he wants to hand over access, great, we nail him. If he doesn't, we still nail him. But you are never alone with him. Not for 1 second. I agreed. At least, I thought I did. Lisbon was different this time. The city was the same: hills, trams, tiled facades. But my relationship to it had changed. Last time, I'd come as a woman on the rise, hand in hand with a man who made me believe I could finally rest. This time, I was walking into a battlefield. Nora came. So did a quiet, watchful woman named Mara from the security firm. She wore jeans, a leather jacket, and the expression of someone who'd seen enough human stupidity to not be surprised by anything. We'll be close, Mara said as we rode from the airport in a nondescript car. Earpiece in your ear. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, say the phrase, "This fish is salty. We'll come get you." I blinked. Seriously? She shrugged. No one says that sentence accidentally. I practiced it under my breath. This fish is salty. Nora snorted. Appropriate, considering the man you're meeting. We reached the restaurant early. It looked exactly the same. Same rickety chairs, same chalkboard menu, same TV in the corner playing soccer. I sat at a table near the window, my hands flat on the wood, my heart pounding so hard I thought the people at the next table might hear it. Mara disappeared, blending into the background like a shadow. Nora took a table outside, pretending to be a tourist. I waited. At 8:07 p.m., Leo walked in. For a second, my breath caught. He looked the same, mostly. Same jawline, same eyes, a little thinner, a little more tan. His hair was longer, tied back. He wore a linen shirt and jeans like every man in that room, but on him, it looked curated. He saw me. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed. He walked over slowly, hands visible, no sudden movements. Allie, he said softly. Leo, I replied. He slid into the chair opposite me, studying my face. You look good, he said. Healthy. You look like you've been stealing sunshine as well as money, I said. He smiled faintly. Still funny. We sat in silence for a moment. I became acutely aware of everything. The clink of cutlery, the murmur of conversations around us, the flicker of the TV. How did you know I'd come alone? I asked. He tilted his head. Did you? I blinked. He glanced subtly toward the back, toward the bar, toward the street outside. I assume your watchdog is here, he said. Probably more than one. You were always thorough. If you wanted to run, you wouldn't have agreed to this, I said. He shrugged. Maybe I wanted good grilled fish before prison. I exhaled. So that's what this is? Your last meal? He looked at me, eyes suddenly very clear. That depends on you, he said. We ordered food to look normal. I barely tasted mine. So, I said finally, give me your story. Spin me your narrative about why you're the victim here. I'm curious what you tell yourself when you look in the mirror. He stared at his plate. I loved you, he said, quietly. Start there. Anger flared in me. No, I snapped. We're not starting with your feelings. We're starting with the night you sat at my kitchen table and used the knowledge I gave you to drain my accounts. He flinched. Do you remember what you said that night? I pressed. You said, I'm going to learn everything you know so I can save you too. Was that foreshadowing? Did you laugh about it later? His jaw tightened. You're not the only one who came from nothing, Alina, he said. You're not the only one with trauma. You wore yours like armor. I wore mine like a shadow. You never looked at it? You just liked that I laughed at your jokes and made your investors like you. This isn't therapy, I said. This is accountability. He smiled bitterly. Of course, he said. Because if we talk about accountability, we don't have to talk about power. I frowned. What are you talking about? He leaned forward. Do you remember the first contract you made me sign? He asked. Our prenup. How you sat there, explaining in very simple language that if we divorced, I'd get nothing, because you were protecting your assets. I offered you a very generous lifestyle clause, I said. You refused it. You said you didn't want my money. Yeah, he said, because I didn't want your pity. I wanted respect. I wanted to be your equal. You say I came into your world as your project, your upgrade, your, what did Nora call me? Your beautiful distraction. But I'm not stupid, Allie. I watched you negotiate. I watched you cut people out the second they became inconvenient. I knew that if I ever needed something from you, really needed it, you'd weigh it against your empire and choose the empire. That's not true, I said. If you'd asked. I did ask, he said sharply, over and over. For equity, for leadership roles you'd actually respect, for a say. And every time you said, not yet, it's too risky, the board won't like it, the optics are bad. You built me into the perfect accessory. You used my charisma, my face, my story. And then you told me to be grateful for scraps. I stared at him, stunned. Do you have any idea how offensive you sound? I whispered. You talk like a neglected intern. You married me. You had my trust, my home, my body, my... I didn't have your power, he cut in. And that's the only language you really speak. We locked eyes. In that moment, I understood something I hadn't before. He'd learned more from me than crypto. He'd learned my worldview, my frameworks, my obsession with leverage. He just turned them on me. So you stole instead, I said. I rebalanced, he said. In your game, you hold what you're afraid to lose, right? You hoard it. You build systems so no one else can touch it. That's what you did with the company, with the wallets, with us. I just moved the pieces. To your side of the board, I said. He didn't deny it. We sat in silence for a while. I didn't plan it at the beginning, he said eventually. At first, I was just happy to be there. Then I was proud of us. Then I got scared. Scared of what? Scared of how much of my life depended on your whims, he said, quietly. If you woke up one day and decided you were done with me, I'd be back behind a bar. You'd still be a genius. You'd still be rich. You'd still be center stage. I'd be nothing. Again. So your solution was to commit a felony, I said. He smiled thinly. You committed a few yourself, if we're being honest. I stiffened. What is that supposed to mean? Don't play dumb, Allie. I saw those early contracts, the way you framed yield projections, the jurisdictions you chose for tax optimization, the shell companies. You crossed so many lines and moved them back with a ruler. That's why you annoyed the SEC so much. You were too good at playing close to the edge. I stayed within the law, I said. As interpreted by lawyers, you paid, he replied. You built a life on gray areas. I just colored a little darker. I wanted to argue. To tell him there's a chasm between aggressive optimization and outright theft. But he wasn't entirely wrong. I had, in fact, built my empire on pushing boundaries. It was one of the reasons he'd fallen for me, one of the reasons I'd fallen for him. We were both comfortable with risk. We just had different thresholds for betrayal. Why are you really here? I asked finally. You didn't risk this meeting just to psychoanalyze me. He sighed, looking suddenly tired. I'm running out of places to go, he said, and people to be. Good, I said. He chuckled bitterly. You're not the only one hunting me. Some of the people whose money got eaten in the fallout. Let's just say they don't file complaints. They make examples. I thought I could disappear. Turns out, vanishing with millions makes you very visible. You expect me to feel sorry for you? I asked. No, he said. I expect you to be pragmatic. That was always your thing. Here's the situation. The wallets I control are fragmented. Part of the funds is frozen in places I can't touch without triggering alerts. Part of it is sitting in protocols I don't trust. Part of it is accessible. I want out. I want enough to negotiate my way into a quiet life somewhere no one knows what a blockchain is. You want restitution, maybe not all, but some. Enough to shut a few lawyers up. Enough to rebuild faster. Get to the point, I said. I can transfer you, say, half of what's left, he said. In return, you soften. Publicly. You advocate for a deal. You tell the regulators I was a rogue husband, yes, but that you've been compensated, and you believe prison would be a waste of resources. They'll still do what they want. But your voice matters. I stared at him. You want me to help you avoid prison, I said slowly. I want you to remember who made you smile when you hadn't in months, he said. Who held you when your first product launch failed? Who brought you tea at 3 a.m. when you were crying over spreadsheets? That person died the night you emptied my safe, I said. He flinched. We sat there, two people picking through the ruins of a love story neither of us had fully understood while we were in it. I thought about Mara, listening, about Nora outside, probably chewing her nails to the bone, about investigators, regulators, angry investors. I thought about my younger self, the girl who'd watched her mother cry over bills, vowing never to depend on anyone else for money, safety, or validation. I thought about how I'd broken that vow for this man, how I'd made him, how he'd used what I'd taught him to cut me open. Then I thought about something else. He was right about one thing. I am pragmatic. I looked him straight in the eye. Move the funds into this address, I said. sliding a piece of paper across the table with a new wallet printed on it, generated by my team and protected behind layers he didn't know about. Half of whatever you still have. Now, on your phone, in front of me. He smirked. Just like that? No smart contract escrow, no lawyer present. You want my help? I said. You show good faith. Publicly. On chain. Consider it a down payment on my softened stance. He studied me, searching for the trap. There was one, of course. He just couldn't see the shape of it. Slowly, he pulled out his phone, opened his wallet app. My pulse hammered in my ears as he tapped, scrolled, typed. On a laptop around the corner, Mara's team was watching the blockchain in real time, ready to flag any movement from known addresses. There, he said after a minute, turning the screen toward me. I saw it. An outbound transaction from one of the wallets we'd flagged months ago to the address I'd given him. 7 million. Not half of what he'd taken originally, but half of what remained after seizures, hacks, bad trades. Enough to rebuild a lot. My breath left my lungs like a wave. He'd actually done it. I nodded slowly. Thank you, I said. He smiled faintly. See? We can still make deals. That was when I said it. This fish is salty, I murmured. He frowned. What? Mara arrived 3 seconds later. 2 other plainclothes officers appeared from seemingly nowhere. One from the bar, one from outside. They moved smoothly, efficiently, like they'd rehearsed it. Leonardo Montes, Mara said, her voice cold and professional. You're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, and aggravated theft. He stared at me. For a second, pure, stunned betrayal crossed his face. You set me up, he whispered. I held his gaze. You set me up 3 years ago, I said. You taught me very well. This is just a rebalancing. He struggled as they cuffed him, but Mara was strong. So were the others. Allie, he said. Allie, come on. You're really going to do this? After everything? After us? I stood slowly. I walked over until I was inches from him. You're right about one thing, I said softly, so only he could hear. I did build you. I took you from nothing and taught you how to play this game. But here's what you forgot. You can steal a person's tools, their tactics, their money. You can't steal their mind. You were always playing catch-up, and you got sloppy. He swallowed. For a moment, the bravado dropped. I saw fear, regret, a flash of the man who'd once run through the rain with me, holding a towel over both our heads. I loved you, he said again, even at the end. Some part of me loved you. I felt something twist inside. I believe you, I said. His eyes widened. And that, I added, is the saddest part. They led him away. The restaurant buzzed with confused whispers. Someone filmed. Of course they did. I went back to my seat, sat down, picked up my fork with shaking hands. The fish on my plate had gone cold. It was, indeed, salty. People like to think betrayal has a clear endpoint. It doesn't. Even after Leo's arrest, the aftermath rippled through my life. There were court cases, statements, cross-examinations, where lawyers tried to paint me as complicit or incompetent or both. There were evenings where I came home from depositions and lay on the floor, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had become a mix of spreadsheets and subpoenas. But there were also small victories: recovering funds, signing new deals, hiring people who believed in the mission despite the scandal. Rebuilding isn't glamorous, it's mundane. It's 1,000 small decisions to keep going when your pride wants you to disappear. One night, months later, I sat on the same rooftop bar where I'd first met Leo. The city looked different. Or maybe I did. A new bartender came over, young, eager. "What can I get you?" he asked. "An espresso martini," I said, "and a glass of water." He nodded, turned away. I opened my laptop. An email blinked at the top of my inbox. Subject: Final sentencing. Leo had taken a plea deal. His lawyers had argued trauma, impulsivity, my supposed control. The prosecutors had argued pattern, premeditation, magnitude. He got 8 years. I read the number. I thought about how long 8 years is. Long enough to start over, long enough to harden, long enough to learn. I closed the email, stared out at the city. Here's the thing I realized, sitting there where it all began. I didn't ruin myself by trusting him. He ruined himself by thinking my trust was a resource to be mined instead of a gift to be honored. Yes, I made mistakes. I lowered guards I'd carefully built. I let charisma override caution. I taught someone my playbook without locking the cover. But none of that justifies what he did. Betrayal is not a group project. If you're watching this, if you're listening to my voice and seeing my face and thinking about your own Leo, the partner you built, the person you poured your knowledge into, the one who used your lessons as weapons against you, hear me. You are not stupid for loving them. You are not weak for teaching them. You are not to blame for the story they wrote with the tools you handed them. The blame belongs to the hand that pulled the trigger, not the one that forged the metal. I built him. He destroyed me. But here's the secret he never understood. You can knock down a house a woman built. Good luck knocking down the woman who built it, because I am still here. Without the mansion. Without the millions I thought would keep me safe. But with something no rug pull, no con artist, no charming thief can ever take. My mind, my story, my name. And this time, I'm not handing any of those over. Not for love, not for business, not for anything. If you stayed with me through this whole story, thank you. If you're going through something similar, you're not alone. Your worth is not measured in what someone stole from you, but in how you decide to live after. And if you want to hear more stories like this, of betrayal, of rebuilding, of women who refuse to stay broken, stick around. Because my life, it's still being written by me.